Hey guys, Xaryu here, and today I'm going to be going over some mage specs in the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth, and let you know what I think of them. We're going to be starting out as Frost because I am a Frost mage at heart. Sometimes I like to dabble in Arcane, probably never Fire, but I'm going to be going over all three specs today with you guys. I'm going to quickly be going over talents. I'm not going to be going over anything super in depth, but quickly scanning over them just to give you guys an idea of what we're in for this next expansion. Just quickly, before we begin, I'm really excited to get Arcane Intellect back and to get Decurse back. So these are two spells that we've seen in the past. Arcane Intellect giving you that Intellect, Decurse removing things like Hex, Tongues, Agony. Very excited for both of them. So Blizzard, thank you for reversing the prune just a little bit. But as we are talking about that, I want to briefly mention as well, Honor Talent tab is gone. As you can see, we just have a spec tab and a talent tab. The honor talents, though, are put in this new little PvP talent tab, and we have 4 options. First one being Trinket Choice. Gladiator's Medallion, Relentless, or Adaptation. You can pick one of the 3. That's it. For a mage, I would assume a Gladiator's Medallion is going to be the way to go because you can pair it things like Temp Shield, because you can pair it with things like Counterspell or Blink. Really solid choice here overall for Mage. Concentrated Coolness, Temp Shield, and Priz Cloak. These are the 3 that I've logged in, but you have about 11 or 12 Honor Talent choices. This is a new system in BFA. You can pick 3 of them. You can pick any 3 of them, so interesting combinations might kind of come up out of nowhere. But yeah, you have Dampened Magic as we know it, Kleptomania as we know it, Shield to the Bone as we know. A lot of these things, guys, have not changed as I mouse through them, and you want to pause the video, you can read them, but all of them are pretty much the same as we've seen already in Legion. And you can change them out based on what you're fighting. Maybe go Netherwind Armor, maybe go Priz Cloak here for this. Temp Shield's a nice defensive cooldown, so that's probably going to be picked most of the time. And then Concentrated Coolness to actually place that orb. I would assume this is the spec, but if you maybe want to go something like Lonely Winter instead of Priz Cloak, you could try something like Frostbite to get those extra Novas. So you can always change it up based on what you're actually fighting or what spec you're actually trying to build. But I would assume this is generally going to be the spec. But first things first, we have Ice Nova up here, Lonely Winter, and Bone Chilling. And when it comes to Lonely Winter, guys, it's 20% damage on your Frostbolt, Ice Lance, and Flurry. But if you don't have a Water Rally, right? So you lose out on the Water Rally damage, you lose out on the Freeze, so you lose out on a little bit of control, and you're losing out on the Ice Nova, which is more damage and more control. It's really hard to pick Lonely Winter over Ice Nova and a Pet Nova and a little bit of pet damage and all that control. So I'm thinking Ice Nova is going to be the pick, but could always be wrong on that. It's still very early in the beta. The expansion is not even out. We're only level 110 on the beta. So once we hit level 120, it's going to be a lot different as well. So that's a lot of testing and stuff involved. So everything I'm going over, guys, will probably change. But I just want to let you guys know initially my thoughts. Shimmer here, as we've seen in the same talent row, and Canner's Flow, most likely going to be choice here. Mirror Images, guys, good in duels, maybe good in 2s, but when it comes to high-rated RBGs, 3s, and Canner's Flow is just going to provide more damage for those burst windows. Now, this is a new row. We have Frozen Touch, which gives you more Fingers of Frost and more Brain Freeze procs. 20% more often, by the way. It does not mean 20% more often. It means 20% more often. And you're probably like, what the heck are you saying right now? So Brain Freeze normally is 25% chance to give you a Flurry, right? So with Frozen Touch, it does not make it 45, it makes it 30, right? 30% chance to give your next Flurry instant cast damage, right? It's 20% of the 25, so you get an additional 5%. So it's not that much. It's like 5% more procs, so it could be used in some compositions depending on how you're playing. Maybe even paired with Lonely Winter. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I'm guessing it's going to be more of a spec like this. So you have more ways to burst. Chain Reaction, guys, also a new talent. 3% damage. For 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times on your Frozen Ice Lances. Would not expect this to be a very good talent, mainly because you don't have that many ways to generate Ice Lances in PvP. If you get really lucky procs from like an orb and then use your Pet Nova, get some more lucky procs, you might get up to 5 stacks. But then you're only getting 15% increased Ice Lance damage, and then your Ice Lance procs have ran out anyway, and it doesn't really come out too much. So Chain Reaction, probably not the play in PvP at all. probably going to be looking at Ebon Bolt. Ebon Bolt, guys, as we know, is the last expansion's Legion's artifact ability, and they actually put it here into the talent tree. So Ebon Bolt's very nice to have it back, but it works a little bit different in the fact that if you get kicked in Frost, you can no longer cast Ebon Bolt. It's not its own tree, it's a Frost spell now. So that's just the slight difference that we've seen there with Ebon Bolt. With Ring of Frost, Ice Ward, and Frigid Winds, I would expect Frigid Winds if you're playing more of a spell cleave, want to slow people down, and Ring of Frost if you're playing more of a setup burst cleave. We have Comet Storm, Splitting Ice, and Freezing Rain. Freezing Rain is another talent that we've seen in the artifact trees that has now made its way into the talent tree, and Comet Storm probably seems to be the pick here, unless you're playing like a spell cleave and you want to do something like this where you're just keeping everyone nice and slow. But I would assume this would be a spec much better for an RMP or an FMP or something that you're doing setups with. Now this last row is a little funky. We got Ray of Frost, Glacial Spike, Thermal Void. Thermal Void, we know what that is, not the greatest in PvP. Glacial Spike, very difficult to actually land and get that off. Long cast time, you have to get those icicles. But Ray of Frost, guys, is a little bit different. Now it's only a 4-second channel instead of a 10-second channel, and it's going to be doing a ton of damage. It really packs a punch. So with a rogue, you throw the Mark for Death, Kidney, Bomb out, something like that. And the Mage might do something like Icy Veins, Orb, Ray of Frost, and this is just so much damage. Then you can spam those Ice Lances after, combo with Comet Storm, Ice Nova, keep spamming those Ice Lances. That is like 3 of someone's life bar right there. That's an insane amount of pressure. So I'm excited for new ways to burst. So in the expansion, guys, for Frost, we can burst with Ray of Frost, we can burst with Ebon Bolt, we can burst with Frozen Orb, we can burst with kind of burst with Comet Storm, Ice Nova, and of course we have the Icy Veins to combo with any of those things. So we're looking at a little more of a versatile spec here, but I still think it feels a little bit off. Our consistent damage is very low, and I still think it's missing something, maybe like a Deep Freeze, but we'll have to wait and see as the expansion gets closer and closer to actually see what we get. But guys, we are going to be looking at Fire and Arcane as well. I'll start with Arcane because that's a spec I play a little bit more often. And just quickly going to go through it. Not going to go super in depth on theory crafting. But once again, guys, we have a very similar looking thing here with the PvP talents and the talents. Once again, Gladiator's Medallion is going to be the pick. These are the honor talents available for Arcane. Torment the Weak is a very interesting one. You have a 15% increased, a 15-yard increase on slow, and it's an AoE slow now, so it affects up to 2 nearby targets as well, allowing Arcane to have quite a bit of control. And then we have Time Anomaly, as we've seen it as an honor talent here as well. Master of Escape, 45 seconds reduced. Rewind Time, Mass Invisibility, Netherwind Armor, a lot of the things we have already seen. One talent that really sticks out to me, though, is Arcane Empowerment, and I have this guy locked in for a reason. Clear casting can stack up to 2 times and increases the damage of arcane missiles by 5% per stack, so you can really burst with those arcane missiles. And if you guys didn't know, arcane missiles is now spammable. You can spam arcane missiles. You don't need procs to actually use it. It's just a normal ability, and you can spam out those arcane missiles. With that, you pair something like Amplification. When clear cast, arcane missiles fires 1 additional missile. So we get 5 or 10% increased damage from Arcane Empowerment. We get an extra missile. All of a sudden, you can really start to burst with missiles if you pop something like Arcane Power to combo it. So interesting builds here that you can mess around with Arcane so far. We have Shimmer, of course, for that increased mobility. Ways to get Polymorph. Slight change. It is a 20-second cooldown now instead of a 15-second recharge. So that's probably pretty good. Probably a good thing, even though it's a nerf, because Shimmer was pretty bonkers. But we have Incanter's Flow here for the same reasoning. Resonance got nerfed. It's only 15% increase now instead of I think on live it might be a 20 or 25% increase, so it's a little bit worse than it was. Still probably the play, but I would not be surprised if Charged Up or Supernova kind of made its way into the metagame based on compositions and based on what people were playing. But we have Chrono Shift, tons of mobility. Ring of Frost, maybe if you're doing a setup build like with RMP and you really want to get that CC, but Chrono Shift is just such an amazing talent for kiting. Erosion, Unstable Magic, Nether Tempest, kind of what we've seen. Erosion seems to be the play, and then we have that overpowered talent, pretty good for fun one-shots or, you know, fun in battlegrounds if you're trying to go for crazy numbers, but Arcane Orb just adds so much consistency to the spec. I would be surprised if we didn't play Arcane Orb here. And then Temp Flux, 5 seconds after Evo ends, you gain its effect again. Probably not the greatest. Adds a little bit of consistency, but I don't think that's going to be great. Maybe for PvE or something like that, but for PvP, seems a little bit too slow. But that's how Arcane's looking, guys. Once again, you're going to be doing some interesting burst combinations with clear-casted Arcane missiles, Arcane Power, throwing a couple missiles out, maybe throw that Arcane Barrage out, then throw out the Orb, Presence of Mind, double Arcane Blast, another Barrage. There is a lot of combinations that you can do with Arcane that's actually going to burst quite heavily, so we'll have to see how that is going to be viable in the expansion, but overall, we're losing Mark of a Lunith, which I'm very, very sad about, and it seems like Arcane is very, very similar to Legion, maybe just a little bit pruned, so I'm a little nervous for Arcane, but we'll move on to Fire and see how Fire is doing as well. Once again, guys, I don't know the top specs. I don't know what's going to be the most viable, but quickly looking at Fire here, we have the Trinket choice just like before. We have that Temp Shield and that Priz Cloak because we know those are going to be pretty solid defensive choices. But quickly as we go through, Tinder is how we've seen it. World of Flames is how we've seen it. Flare Up, I believe, is how we've seen it. Such a solid choice. More Fire Blast. Get those Fire Blast refunded. Super, super nice there. And then we have Fire Starter, reducing the cooldown of your combustion. Flame Cannon. Greater Pyro is actually an option as well. Then we have Dampen Magic, Klepto, Temp Shield, and Priz Cloak. So those are the options for Fire Mage. I would expect maybe something like this to come in, maybe switch it out to Netherwind Armor or Flame Cannon, kind of depending on what kind of composition you're playing, but something like this might be a standard build spec for Fire. And then we have that Pyromaniac. Searing Touch increases scorch damage and makes it kind of an execute-ish thing to get that guaranteed crit. Test it out, doesn't do too much damage. And then Fire Starter, believe Pyromaniac's still going to be the play here. We have Shimmer, Blazing Soul, casting Blink ignites a blazing barrier around you, and Blast Wave. I would expect Shimmer to still be the play here for the increased mobility. And Canner's Flow, once again, for that same reasoning. Phoenix Flames, the artifact ability that we saw in Legion, is coming back as a normal talent here in BFA, and just so much damage from it. You have 3 charges of it, so it gives you a lot of ways to actually create Pyroblast and really get instant cast pressure out. So I would expect that to be the choice. Alexstrasza's Fury, though, is a new talent, making Dragon's Breath guaranteed to crit and contributing to your hot streak. So that's pretty solid as well. As a new talent, I would not expect you to pick it over Phoenix Flames, though. And then Flame On, as we've seen it, kind of an interesting choice here between Phoenix Flames and Flame On, but I'd still say Phoenix Flames probably provides just a little bit more damage overall. We have that Ring of Frost talent, Frenetic Speed. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Casting Scorch increases your movement speed. Maybe you could play this in some duels or 2v2 situations, but this is probably the play in 3s, especially if you're playing more of a burst cleave where you're playing RMP or FMP and you're wanting to guarantee those CCs. We have Living Bomb, Conflag, and Flame Patch. These are kind of talents that we've already seen. They all kind of break CCs, so not the greatest, but Living Bomb is a controlled way to break or not break that CC, right? So I think Living Bomb would probably be the play here. And then we have Meteor, Pyroclasm, and Kindling. I'm not sure if these are new talents because I don't play too much Fire, to be honest, in Legion, but Kindling reducing the cooldown on Combust, and Pyroclasm making your non-instant Pyros deal a lot more damage. I mean, hard casting a Pyro is pretty difficult, and almost seems like a worse way of casting like a Greater Pyro or something like that. So Meteor for that controlled burst is probably the plays. But Fire is actually looking very strong. Looks like a very similar Fire that we've seen in Legion, but it's looking very strong just in terms of its consistent pressure, in terms of its damage output, and it's just, there's no casting involved, right? You can pretty much non-stop crush the enemy. So I would expect Fire to be actually pretty solid here in the expansion, but that's Fire, Frost, and Arcane, guys. I'm mostly going to be starting off the expansion with Frost. It looks like the most versatile right now. I'm excited to see all the different ways you can burst. I'm really excited for D-Curse. I'm really excited for Arcane Intellect, but I'm a little nervous for the lack of abilities that maybe Arcane has, or some of the lack of consistent pressure or control that Frost may have. But we'll go to those problems, or not. Maybe they won't be problems as the expansion comes out, and we'll kind of look at that in in the future. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you want me to cover any other specs in the BFA beta, let me know. I do have beta, so I'm excited to hop on and try some more classes. I have tried a little bit of Shadow Priest. It's pretty cool. I actually really like how Shadow Priest is designed. A little bit of Sub Rogue, it's not bad either. So let me know down below in the comments what you guys want me to cover next as far as BFA beta. And guys, thumbs video down if you didn't like it. That's okay too. Talk to me in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.